She was about to marry a con artist who'd use her as his scapegoat until a Korean Mafia boss walked in and changed everything. Matthew didn't tap his champagne flute gently. He struck it hard enough that the crystal rang through the ballroom like a warning bell, and every conversation died instantly. "Friends," he said, his smile sharp as broken glass, "tonight isn't just about love. It's about legacy." Soft applause rippled through the crowd. Danielle's stomach dropped. Matthew's hand settled at her lower back, possessive, controlling. "Danielle and I didn't get here by accident. This partnership required discipline, trust, and corrections." The word sliced through her like a blade. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. "She had to learn," Matthew continued smoothly, his fingers tightening just enough to hurt. "That independence is great, until it interferes with alignment." The silence that followed was suffocating. This wasn't a celebration. This was a public execution dressed as a party. Then the gravity in the room shifted. The ballroom doors opened. A man entered alone. Black suit, no jewelry, no phone. He moved like someone who didn't need to announce himself. People simply knew. Guests went pale. Whispers spread like wildfire. "That's Kang Min-jae. I didn't know he was in the States." "Why is he here?" Matthew's smile flickered, just for a second. Danielle noticed. The man walked forward slowly, and the crowd parted without being asked. Two men remained at the doors, silent, watchful. He stopped directly in front of Danielle, didn't acknowledge Matthew, just her. "This party is over," he said quietly. The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. Matthew laughed sharp, defensive. "I'm sorry, who the hell are you?" Kang Min-jae ignored him completely. Instead, he reached out and placed his hand gently over Danielle's wrist, right where Matthew's fingers were digging in. Matthew flinched and pulled back instinctively. "She's under my protection now," Kang said, his voice calm and absolute. The room froze. Danielle's breath caught. Her heart hammered, but the crushing weight on her chest suddenly eased. Matthew's face flushed red. "Security! Get him out now!" Kang finally turned to face him. "My name is Kang Min-jae," he said evenly, "and you've been laundering money through my American logistics network for 20 months. A collective gasp swept through the ballroom, Matthew's face drained of color. "You told my people you were importing disaster relief equipment," Kang continued. "Hurricane aid, medical supplies, very patriotic." Danielle felt her knees weaken. "But you were moving restricted weapons and illicit tech through nonprofit shells in Nevada and Texas," Kang said. "When federal scrutiny increased, you needed cover. Someone clean." His eyes dropped to the oversized diamond on Danielle's finger. "So you proposed to my forensic accountant." The words detonated like a bomb. Danielle staggered back. "What?" Kang's voice softened, precise, not gentle. "You flagged irregularities in those accounts. You didn't know who owned them. You did your job anyway." Her world tilted sideways. Matthew lunged forward, desperation cracking through his facade. "She doesn't know anything. This is insane." Kang raised one hand, and one of his men stepped forward and placed a thin folder on the nearest table. Bank records, email chains, shell corporations, surveillance photos, all tied to Matthew Reynolds. "You plan to marry her, transfer liability into her name, and vanish before the indictments landed," Kang said quietly. The silence was absolute. Danielle felt betrayal crash into rage. Matthew spun toward her, reaching out. "Danielle, listen, this isn't—" "You're finished," Kang said. Matthew rounded on him, fear finally breaking through. "You can't just walk in here and destroy me." Kang stepped closer, not aggressive, just certain. "I can," he said, "and I am." He leaned in slightly. "The FBI has had a sealed case on you for 6 months. I delayed it." Matthew's face went gray. "Tonight," Kang continued, "I stopped delaying." Matthew looked around wildly. Our former allies avoided his eyes. Phones were already recording. "You have 3 minutes," Kang said. Matthew's confidence shattered. Without another word, he turned and fled, shoulders hunched, reputation in ruins. The doors slammed behind him. No one applauded. Only stunned silence remained. Kang turned back to Danielle. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, the diamond ring suddenly feeling like a shackle. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "You can walk away, you can disappear, or you can stay exactly where you are." He paused. "Either way, you are untouchable." "Why?" Her voice broke. "Why help me?" Kang studied her carefully, and something in his expression softened, just barely. "Because you did the right thing when it was dangerous," he said. "And because men like him only stop when someone stronger intervenes." He extended his arm, not ownership, an invitation. "Come," he said quietly. "Let them stare." Danielle hesitated, her hand trembling. Then she took it. As they walked out into the Los Angeles night, camera flashes erupted behind them. Whispers chased them through the lobby. Power shifted in real time. But Danielle didn't look back. For the first time in 2 years, she wasn't being corrected, managed, or displayed like a trophy. She was protected. And somewhere behind them, Matthew Reynolds stood frozen in the wreckage of his own ambition, realizing too late that the woman he'd tried to use had been standing under the protection of a far more dangerous man all along. But how did a forensic accountant from Ohio end up flagging the accounts of a Korean crime syndicate? And why would Kang Min-jae, a man who controlled half the Pacific Rim's shadow economy, walk into an engagement party to save her? The answer lay 6 months earlier, in a windowless office in downtown LA, when Danielle Brooks first opened a file marked confidential and discovered numbers that didn't add up. "Hello, my friends. Thanks for joining me on this fascinating story. Before we continue, please kindly help subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where you are watching from and what time it's at your end." Now let's continue with our story. The valet stand outside the Orion Crest Hotel buzzed with chaos. Guests spilled onto the sidewalk, phones out, voices overlapping in frantic whispers. Inside the lobby, Danielle stood beside Kang Min-jae, her hand still resting in the crook of his arm. She felt numb, disconnected, like she was watching her life collapse from outside her own body. Behind them, the ballroom doors remained closed, but the whispers had already escaped. "That's him, Kang Min-jae. I thought he was just a myth." "He's not. My firm handled a merger last year. His name came up once, and the deal died in 48 hours. He doesn't make threats. If he shows up, it's already over." Danielle's chest tightened. She turned slightly, catching fragments of conversation from a cluster of venture capitalists near the marble fountain. "Matthew's done. You don't cross Kang and walk away." What was he even doing here? Maybe Reynolds was stupid enough to steal from him. One of the women, a tech investor Danielle had met twice, locked eyes with her. The woman's expression wasn't pity, it was fear. Fear of Danielle, or rather, fear of the man standing beside her. Kang's grip on her hand tightened just slightly, steadying. "Breathe," he said quietly, his voice meant only for her. She did, barely. The ballroom doors opened. Matthew appeared, flanked by 2 of his groomsmen. His face was red, his jaw tight. He scanned the lobby until his eyes landed on Danielle. "We need to talk," Matthew said, his voice strained. "Now." Kang didn't move. "There's nothing left to discuss," he said calmly. Matthew took a step forward. "You don't get to decide that. She's my fiancée." "No," Kang said. "I know, she's not." The words were quiet, final. Matthew's hands curled into fists. "You can't just walk in here and destroy everything I've built based on, what? Rumors? Accusations?" Kang tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. "Not rumors," he said. "Facts." He gestured toward one of his men, who stepped forward and handed him the folder from earlier. Kang held it up but didn't open it. 20 months ago, Kang said, his tone conversational, "you approached my logistics network through a shell company registered in Nevada. You claimed to be moving humanitarian supplies, generators, water filtration systems, medical equipment for disaster zones." Matthew's face went pale. "You were vetted," Kang continued. "Approved, trusted." He paused. "And then you started moving weapons." Gasps rippled through the lobby. Then Danielle's knees buckled slightly. Kang's hand steadied her without breaking eye contact with Matthew. "Restricted tech," Kang said. Surveillance equipment, components for drones, all routed through charities with IRS exemptions. Matthew opened his mouth to protest, but Kang kept going. When federal audits started closing in, you needed distance, plausible deniability. His eyes flicked to Danielle. So you found someone trustworthy, someone meticulous, a forensic accountant who worked for a firm you could manipulate. Danielle's stomach dropped. You gave her access to your financials, Kang said, made her review your clean accounts. And when she flagged irregularities in accounts you thought were buried accounts I owned, you didn't fire her. He stepped closer to Matthew. You proposed? The silence was crushing, and Danielle felt tears burning her eyes. I didn't know. I know, Kang said gently, still looking at Matthew. He made sure you wouldn't. Matthew's voice cracked with desperation. This is insane. She's been helping me the whole time. She knew what those accounts were. Kang's expression didn't change. You have 12 hours, he said. Matthew blinked. What? 12 hours to contact your lawyer, liquidate what assets you can legally access, and prepare your defense. Kang's voice was ice. After that, the FBI receives everything in this folder, along with testimony from 3 of your former partners who've agreed to cooperate. Matthew's face drained of all color. You're lying, he whispered. Kang opened the folder, just enough for Matthew to see the top page. A federal subpoena, dated today. Matthew staggered back. 12 hours, Kang repeated. Then he closed the folder and handed it back to his associate. Matthew's eyes darted to Danielle, wild and panicked. Tell him, Matthew said, his voice rising. Tell him you knew. Tell him you helped me set those accounts up. Tell him. Enough, Kang said. The single word cut through the lobby like a blade. Matthew fell silent. Kang turned to Danielle, his expression softening. We're leaving, he said. Danielle nodded, unable to speak. As they walked toward the exit, Matthew's voice rang out behind them, desperate, broken. She's lying. She knew everything. She's just as guilty as I am. Danielle froze. Kang didn't. He guided her forward, through the glass doors, into the cool Los Angeles night. But Matthew's words followed her like poison. Guilty, just as guilty as I am. Matthew didn't let them reach the doors. Stop! His voice cracked through the lobby like a whip. Everyone stop and listen to me. Danielle felt Kang's hand tighten on her arm, but he didn't pull her forward. He simply stopped, turned slightly, waited. Matthew seized the moment. He straightened his jacket, smoothed his hair, and when he spoke again, his voice had regained its polished edge, the one he used in boardrooms, the one that made investors believe anything. I know what this looks like, Matthew said, addressing the crowd that had frozen in place. A powerful man walks in, makes wild accusations, and everyone assumes I'm guilty. A few heads nodded uncertainly. Matthew's eyes found Danielle. But ask yourselves, do you really know her? Danielle's breath caught. And Danielle Brooks came to L.A. 3 years ago with nothing, Matthew continued, his tone measured, sympathetic. I gave her opportunities, mentorship. I trusted her with my finances, my business, my life. He paused for effect. And now, when things get complicated, she finds a more powerful man to hide behind. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. She's not a victim, Matthew said softly. She's ambitious, always has been. She flagged those accounts because she wanted leverage. She wanted to climb higher, and when I wouldn't give her what she wanted, she went looking for someone who would. A woman near the fountain whispered something to her husband. Danielle felt the ground shifting beneath her. Heat flooded her face. Matthew, that's not... she started. Isn't it? Matthew cut her off gently, like a disappointed father. You've been unstable for months, Danielle. Anxious, paranoid. I tried to help you, but you kept pushing me away. His voice dropped to something that sounded almost like concern. I think you're being manipulated, he said, and I think everyone here can see it. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Danielle's hands trembled. Tears blurred her vision. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, but the words tangled in her throat, and Kang said nothing. He just stood there, watching Matthew with the same calm expression he'd worn all night. Matthew sensed victory. He stepped forward, addressing the crowd directly now. "I'm not asking you to take my word for it," he said. "I'm asking you to use common sense. A stranger walks into my engagement party, makes baseless accusations, and suddenly I'm the villain." He laughed soft, self-deprecating. "I've built my reputation over 15 years. You all know me. You've worked with me, trusted me." More nods, more whispers. Danielle felt herself shrinking. Then Kang moved. He stepped forward, not aggressive, just deliberate, and opened the folder fully. "Matthew Reynolds," Kang said, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a scalpel. "Founded Apex Relief Solutions in 2019. Registered as a 501c3 nonprofit in Nevada." He pulled out a document, held it up. "Tax-exempt status approved based on declared mission, providing disaster relief to underserved communities." Matthew's smile faltered. Kang pulled out another page. February 2023. Apex Relief partnered with Horizon Logistics, one of my companies, to import medical equipment through Long Beach Port. He turned the page toward the crowd. Shipping manifests. Customs declarations. Except the shipments contained encrypted communication devices, surveillance drones, restricted tech with military applications. Gasps echoed through the lobby. "You routed them through a second shell company in Texas," Kang continued. "Lone Star Humanitarian Fund, also registered as a nonprofit, also controlled by you." Matthew's face went white. Kang pulled out more documents, bank statements, wire transfers, emails with subject lines like "package secured" and "route confirmed." "When my auditors flagged the discrepancies, you didn't stop," Kang said. "You hired Danielle Brooks to clean up your financials, gave her access to your legitimate accounts, the ones that would pass scrutiny." He looked at Danielle, his expression softening briefly. "She did her job. She found irregularities. And instead of firing her," he turned back to Matthew, "you proposed." Danielle's knees buckled. Kang's associate stepped forward, steadying her. "You plan to marry her," Kang said quietly. "Transfer partial ownership of your companies into her name. Make her a co-signer on key accounts." He pulled out one final document, a prenuptial agreement, highlighted sections detailing financial liability, asset distribution, and Danielle's heart-stopped criminal indemnification clauses. "When the federal indictments came," Kang said, "you would claim she acted independently, that she was the one laundering money, that you were deceived by someone you loved." The lobby erupted in shocked whispers. Danielle stared at the document, her vision swimming. Every clause, every signature line. It was all there. She was supposed to be his scapegoat. Her legs gave out completely. She sank to the floor, barely aware of Kang kneeling beside her. Matthew stumbled backward, his hands shaking. That's not," he stammered. "You're twisting." Kang stood slowly, his eyes locked on Matthew. "The FBI already has copies," he said. "So does the IRS and the DOJ." Matthew's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. "You have 11 hours and 43 minutes, Kang said. And for the first time all night, Matthew Reynolds looked truly terrified. Matthew's face cycled through emotions, shock, denial, rage, before settling on something desperate. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice shook. "The FBI doesn't just hand over sealed cases to criminals." Kang's expression didn't change. "They don't," he agreed. "But they do coordinate with cooperating witnesses in ongoing investigations." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Matthew blinked. "What?" "The FBI opened a case on you 6 months ago," Kang said, his tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. "Wire fraud, money laundering, illegal arms trafficking. The evidence was substantial." He paused, but incomplete. Matthew's eyes widened. They needed proof of intent, a clear paper trail connecting you to the restricted shipments, and someone on the inside willing to testify about your operational structure. Kang tilted his head slightly. "I provided all 3. The lobby went completely silent. Even Danielle, still kneeling on the marble floor, looked up at him with something between awe and terror. "You see, Matthew," Kang continued, "when you started using my network, you became my problem. And when my auditors discovered what you were actually moving, I had two options." He held up one finger. "Eliminate you quietly, make you disappear, no trial, no headlines, just gone." Several guests stepped back instinctively. Kang raised a second finger. "Or let federal authorities handle it. Cooperate, provide evidence, ensure your destruction was legal and permanent." Matthew's hands trembled at his sides. "I chose the second option," Kang said, "not out of mercy, but because I don't need the attention that comes with bodies." He gestured toward the folder still held by his associate. "For 6 months, I've been feeding the FBI everything they need. Bank records, shipping logs, recorded conversations with your partners who, by the way, turned on you the moment they realized federal prison was an option." Matthew looked around wildly, searching for support, but the crowd had changed. The venture capitalists who'd laughed at his jokes earlier now stood 3 steps farther back. The lawyers who'd toasted his success avoided eye contact. The politicians who'd taken his donations checked their phones, already calculating distance. No one met his gaze. Matthew was alone. "You're lying," he whispered. "You have to be." Kang pulled out his phone, tapped the screen twice, turned it toward Matthew. An email. Subject line, R.E., United States versus Matthew James Reynolds. Case number C, R202-58847 sender. Special Agent Victoria Chen, FBI, Financial Crimes Division. Date, today, 4:47 p.m. Matthew's knees buckled. "They were scheduled to arrest you next Tuesday," Kang said, pocketing his phone. "At your office, quietly, professionally." He stepped closer. "I asked them to wait." Matthew's voice came out strangled. "Why?" "Because I wanted you to know," Kang said simply. "I wanted you to understand exactly who you tried to use, and I wanted her." He glanced at Danielle. "To see you stripped of everything before you disappeared into a federal courtroom." He moved then, smooth, deliberate, positioning himself directly between Matthew and Danielle. The message was unmistakable. "You will leave now," Kang said. "You will not contact Danielle. You will not approach her. You will not send lawyers, friends, or intermediaries." His voice dropped lower. "You will vanish from her life completely." Matthew's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Go," Kang said, "while you still can." For a moment, Matthew didn't move. He just stood there, swaying slightly, his entire world collapsing around him in real time. Then he turned. He walked toward the exit, slow, unsteady, his shoulders hunched like a man carrying an invisible weight. His groomsmen scattered. His friends melted into the crowd. No one followed him. At the door, Matthew stopped. He looked back, his eyes finding Danielle one last time, and the hatred in his gaze was so raw, so visceral, that she flinched. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You think he's saving you? He's using you, just like I did." His laugh was bitter, broken. "You'll see." Then he pushed through the doors and disappeared into the night. The lobby remained silent. Danielle stared at the empty doorway, her hands pressed against the cold marble floor, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Kang crouched beside her, his presence steady. "He's wrong," he said softly. Danielle looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "How do you know?" Kang's expression was unreadable. "Because when I use someone," he said, "they never see me coming." He stood and extended his hand. "And you saw me the moment I walked in." The lobby felt cavernous in the silence. Guests dispersed quietly, murmuring into phones, avoiding eye contact. Within minutes, the crowd had thinned to nothing. Even the hotel staff disappeared, as if they sensed this wasn't a scene they should witness. Danielle remained on the floor, her white dress pooling around her like spilled paint. Her hands shook. Her breathing came in uneven gasps. Everything felt unreal. The engagement, the humiliation, the accusations, the evidence. Matthew's hatred in those final seconds. This isn't over. Her chest tightened. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then Kang knelt beside her again. He didn't speak, didn't rush her. just waited patient and still until her ragged breathing began to slow. When she finally looked at him, tears blurred her vision completely. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear. I didn't know what he was doing." "I know," Kang said gently. "But what if the FBI thinks I was part of it? What if they won't?" His voice was calm, certain. "They have your original audit reports, the ones you submitted to your firm flagging the irregularities, your emails questioning the discrepancies, your formal recommendations to investigate further." Danielle blinked through her tears. "How do you—" "I gave them everything," Kang said, "including proof that you acted with integrity when it would have been easier and safer to look away." A sob broke free from her throat. Kang reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and gently wiped the tears from her cheek with his thumb. The gesture was so tender it made her breath hitch. "Why?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." Kang studied her for a long moment, his dark eyes unreadable. "6 months ago," he said finally. "My people brought me a forensic audit report. Standard due diligence on one of our partner accounts. The auditor had flagged unusual patterns, shell transfers, inconsistent documentation." He paused. "Most accountants would have noted the irregularities and moved on, recommended surface-level compliance checks, protected themselves." His voice softened. "You didn't. You dug deeper. You documented everything. You submitted a formal recommendation to freeze the accounts and launch a federal investigation, even though you had no idea who owned them." Danielle's eyes widened. "You could have been killed for that," Kang said quietly. "People have died for less in my world. But you did it anyway, because it was the right thing to do." He leaned back slightly, giving her space. "So when my people identified Matthew Reynolds as the source of the problem, and when I learned he was planning to marry you and use you as his shield, I decided to intervene." "But you're—" Danielle hesitated. "You're not exactly—" "A good man?" Kang offered, a faint trace of something like amusement crossing his face. She nodded. "No," he agreed. "I'm not." He stood slowly and extended his hand. "But I protect what's mine. And when someone does right by me, even unknowingly, I return the favor." Danielle stared at his hand, her mind spinning. "I'm not yours," she said softly. "No," Kang agreed. "You're not." He kept his hand extended. "But you could be under my protection, voluntarily, until the federal case closes, until you're safe. And then?" "Then you walk away," Kang said simply. "No debt, no obligation, no strings." Danielle searched his face for deception, for hidden motives, for the trap Matthew had spent 2 years setting. She found none, just quiet certainty. "I don't understand you," she whispered. "You don't have to," Kang said. "You just have to decide." He gestured toward the hotel exit, where his men waited by a black sedan. "You can come with me. I have a secure location where you'll be safe while the FBI processes Matthew's case. Or," he gestured toward the lobby entrance, "you can walk out those doors and disappear on your own. I'll still make sure you're protected, but from a distance." Danielle's gaze moved between the two exits. Freedom, or safety, loneliness, or risk. She looked down at her left hand. The massive diamond Matthew had given her, the symbol of his control, still sat heavy on her finger. Slowly, deliberately, she pulled it off. It clattered against the marble floor, the sound echoing through the empty lobby. Then she reached up and took Kang's hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm, steady, certain. "Okay," she whispered. Kang's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes, something that looked almost like relief. "Okay," he echoed. He helped her to her feet, and together they walked toward the exit. Behind them, the diamond ring lay forgotten on the floor, a monument to a lie. Ahead, the black sedan waited, its engine purring softly in the night. And as Danielle stepped inside, leaving behind everything she thought she knew, one thought cut through the chaos. "I just got into a car with a man more dangerous than the one I escaped." The door closed behind her, and the city swallowed them whole. The sedan moved through Los Angeles like a shadow, silent, smooth, untouchable. Danielle sat in the back seat beside Kang, watching the city blur past tinted windows. Her dress felt too tight, her skin too hot. Everything felt surreal, like she'd stepped through a door into someone else's life. Behind them, 3 more vehicles followed at precise intervals. "Where are we going?" she asked quietly. "Somewhere safe," Kang said. It wasn't an answer, but Danielle didn't have the energy to push. Her phone buzzed incessantly in her clutch, text after text, call after call. She pulled it out and watched the screen light up with notifications. Unknown number. Is it true? Did Matthew really? Sarah, college. OMG. I just saw the video. Are you okay? Mom, Danielle, call me right now. Unknown. Number. You're all over Twitter. What happened? Danielle's stomach dropped. Video. Kang glanced at her phone, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a sleek black device. He tapped the screen and handed it to her. A news website loaded instantly. Breaking. Federal investigation rocks LA elite engagement party. Below the headline, grainy phone footage played on loop. Matthew's face, Kang's calm voice, the folder, guests backing away. The view count was already in the hundreds of thousands. "Oh God," Danielle whispered. "It was going to come out eventually," Kang said evenly. "Better now, when you're not standing beside him." Danielle scrolled further. Social media posts, speculation, think pieces already being written about power, corruption, and the mysterious Korean businessman who'd exposed it all. Her hands trembled. Kang gently took the phone from her and powered it down. "You don't need that right now," he said. The car turned off the main road, winding up into the hills. Streetlights grew sparse. Mansions appeared behind gates and hedges, each more isolated than the last. Finally, they stopped in front of a modernist compound, all clean lines, dark stone, and walls of glass that revealed nothing. The gate opened silently. Inside, the house felt more like a fortress. High ceilings, minimal furniture, everything designed for function, not comfort. Security cameras discreetly positioned in corners, reinforced doors, windows that Danielle suspected were bulletproof. Kang led her through the main room to a sitting area overlooking the canyon. Los Angeles glittered below like fallen stars. "You'll stay here," he said. "Second floor, east wing, private bedroom and bath. Everything you need will be provided." Danielle turned to face him. "For how long?" "As long as necessary." "And what does that mean?" Kang's expression remained neutral. "The FBI will move on Matthew within the next 72 hours. After his arrest, there will be media scrutiny, possible retaliation from his associates, legal challenges." He paused. "You'll be safer here than anywhere else." Danielle wrapped her arms around herself. "And then?" "Then you leave. Resume your life. Disappear if you want to." "Just like that?" "Just like that." She studied him, searching for the angle, the manipulation, the trap. "What do you want from me?" she asked bluntly. Kang met her gaze directly. "Nothing." "Everyone wants something." "I want you safe," he said simply. "That's all." "Why?" He was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "Because you didn't have to flag those accounts," he said finally. "You didn't have to risk your career, your safety, your future, but you did it anyway." His voice lowered. "People like that are rare in my world, worth protecting." Danielle wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But trust felt impossible right now. "What are the rules?" she asked instead. Kang gestured toward the glass doors leading to a terrace. "You can move freely within the house and grounds. Security will always be present, but they won't interfere unless there's a threat." "Can I leave?" "Whenever you want," Kang said. "Though I'd recommend against it until after Matthew's arrest." "And if I try anyway?" "My people will follow you, keep you safe from a distance." He tilted his head slightly. "But they won't stop you." Danielle absorbed this. "I'm trying to find the catch." "I'm not a prisoner," she said slowly. "No. And I don't owe you anything." "Correct." She took a shaky breath. Okay. Kang nodded once, then turned toward the door. Someone will bring you clothes and anything else you need. Rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. He was almost gone when Danielle spoke again. Kang. He stopped, looking back. Thank you, she said quietly. His expression softened, barely perceptible, but there. You're welcome. Danielle stood alone in the massive room, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway. She walked to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass. Below, the city pulsed with life. Somewhere out there, Matthew was planning his next move. The FBI was preparing warrants. Her entire world was unraveling, and she was standing in a fortress owned by a man whose power she couldn't begin to comprehend. Her phone, still in Kang's possession, buzzed once in the distance. Then silence. Danielle closed her eyes. Protection has a cost, she thought. I just don't know what it is yet. Somewhere in the house, a door opened. Footsteps approached. Quick, urgent. One of Kang's men appeared in the doorway, his expression tense. Sir, he said to someone behind him. Kang reappeared, his face unreadable. The man handed him a phone. Kang listened for 30 seconds. His jaw tightened. When he looked up at Danielle, something had changed in his eyes. What? She asked, her heart racing. What is it? Matthew, Kang said quietly. He didn't disappear. What do you mean? Kang's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. He just posted bail for someone. A fixer with connections to Eastern European networks. Danielle's blood went cold. Why would he? Because he's coming for you, Kang said. The story broke at 6:47 a.m. Danielle woke to urgent voices outside her door. She scrambled out of bed, still wearing the clothes Kang's staff had provided the night before, soft cotton pants, and an oversized shirt that smelled faintly of lavender. When she opened the door, one of Kang's men stood waiting, tablet in hand. Ma'am, he said quietly, you need to see this. She took the device. The headline hit her like a physical blow. Exclusive. Forensic accountant orchestrated elaborate scheme to frame. Fiancé, sources, say below it, a photo. Her and Matthew at a charity gala 6 months ago. Her hand on his arm, both of them smiling. The caption read, Danielle Brooks and Matthew Reynolds, a partnership that turned deadly. Her hand started shaking. The article was a masterpiece of manipulation, anonymous sources, carefully edited facts. She quotes from former colleagues claiming she'd always been ambitious, calculating, willing to do whatever it took to climb. She had access to everything, one source stated. Reynolds trusted her completely. When he discovered she was embezzling through shell accounts, she panicked and fabricated this entire conspiracy to save herself. Another quote, the so-called evidence against Reynolds, all planted by Brooks and her new associate, a known criminal with ties to organized crime. Danielle's vision blurred. They'd turned everything upside down, made her the architect, made Matthew the victim. Where's Kang? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Downstairs. She found him in a glass-walled office, phone pressed to his ear, eyes scanning 3 different screens simultaneously. He ended the call when he saw her. You've seen it, he said. Not a question. Danielle thrust the tablet toward him. How is this legal? They're lying. It's not about legality, Kang said calmly. It's about narrative. Matthew knows he can't win in court, so he's trying to win in public opinion first. Poison the jury pool. Make federal prosecutors think twice. It's working, Danielle's voice cracked. My mom's been calling, my old firm. Everyone I know is reading this and thinking, that you're a criminal, Kang finished quietly. She sank into a chair. What do I do? Kang studied her for a long moment. You have 2 options, he said finally. You can hide. Let me handle this. Stay silent and hope the truth comes out in court. Or you fight back. He leaned forward. Help me dismantle his story piece by piece. Go on record. Provide your own evidence. And make it impossible for anyone to believe his version. Danielle looked up at him. You mean cooperate publicly? With you? Yes. That'll make me look even more guilty, like I'm choosing sides with... She stopped herself. With a criminal, Kang finished for her, his expression unreadable. Yes, it will. The silence stretched between them. Then Danielle straightened her shoulders. What do you need from me? Within 2 hours, Kang's team had assembled a war room. Danielle sat at a conference table, surrounded by lawyers, digital forensics experts, and a crisis communications specialist who looked far too young to be this competent. We need to establish timeline part, the specialist said, pulling up a digital board. Every interaction you had with Reynolds, every audit report you filed, every warning you issued. Danielle nodded. I kept copies, personal backups of everything I submitted to my firm. One of the lawyers looked up sharply. You kept personal copies of confidential client files? I kept copies of my work, Danielle corrected, my audit reports, my recommendations. When clients started disappearing from our roster after I flagged problems, I wanted proof I'd done my job. Kang's expression shifted slightly, almost approving. Smart, he said. For the next 3 hours, Danielle walked them through everything. The first irregularities she'd noticed, the shell companies that didn't match their stated purposes, the transfers that made no sense, her escalating concerns, Matthew's dismissive reassurances. The marriage proposal that had felt romantic at the time and now looked like entrapment. He proposed 2 weeks after I submitted my final audit, Danielle realized aloud. The one recommending federal investigation. The room went quiet. He needed you compromised, one of the lawyers said. Financially entangled, legally vulnerable. Danielle felt sick. Kang stood abruptly. Prepare the counter-release, timeline, documentation. Danielle's original reports with timestamps showing she flagged problems before Reynolds proposed. He turned to his communications specialist. I want this on every major outlet by noon, and I want Matthew's anonymous sources identified and discredited by tonight. The woman nodded, already typing. Kang looked at Danielle. This will get worse before it gets better. Matthew will escalate. Are you certain? Danielle thought about the diamond ring she'd left on the hotel floor. The 2 years of subtle control, the humiliation, the trap. I'm certain, she said. The counter story dropped at 11:53 a.m. By 2 p.m., 3 of Matthew's anonymous sources had been exposed as business partners facing their own federal investigations. By 4 p.m., Danielle's original audit reports, complete with her handwritten notes and formal warnings, were circulating online. By 6 p.m., public opinion had started to shift. But at 6:47 p.m., Kang's phone rang. He listened in silence, his expression darkening. When he hung up, he looked at Danielle. Matthew just withdrew $2.3 million in cryptocurrency from an offshore account. Danielle frowned. I thought his assets were frozen. They are, Kang said grimly. This account wasn't in his name. Then who's yours? The room went silent. What? Danielle whispered. Kang's jaw tightened. He opened it 6 months ago. Used your credentials. Your digital signature, probably from documents you signed without reading carefully. Horror washed over her. He's framing me. Again. No, Kang said quietly. He's funding something. Funding what? Kang looked at his head of security, who just entered the room. The man's expression was grim. Sir, he said, we have movement. 3 vehicles approaching the compound. Unregistered plates. Occupants unknown. Kang stood slowly, his entire demeanor shifting into something cold and lethal. Lock down the house, he ordered. No one in or out. He turned to Danielle. Stay here. Don't move. What's happening? She asked, fear creeping into her voice. Kang's eyes met hers, and for the first time, she saw something dangerous beneath the calm. Matthew just made his last mistake, he said. Then he was gone. The compound went silent. Danielle stood frozen in the war room, her heart hammering against her ribs. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see security personnel moving with military precision positions taken, sight lines established, weapons she couldn't identify, appearing from beneath jackets. Kang spoke quietly into his phone, his voice too low to hear. Then the vehicle stopped. Not at the gate. Half a mile down the road, just visible through the canyon's curve. Danielle watched Kang's expression shift from alert to something colder, calculating. "They're not coming in," he said. His head of security nodded. "Surveillance only, professional." "Matthew's not stupid enough to attack directly," Kang murmured, almost to himself. "He's watching, waiting for me to—" He stopped, his eyes sharpened with understanding. He wants me to move her," Kang said. "He's trying to flush us out, force us onto the road where we're vulnerable." "So we stay?" the security chief asked. Kang smiled cold and predatory. "No," he said. "We give him exactly what he wants." 20 minutes later, 2 identical black sedans left the compound. The first carried Kang's decoy team. The second remained empty, programmed to follow via remote control. Danielle watched from the war room as the vehicles descended into the canyon, tail lights disappearing around the bend. The 3 surveillance vehicles followed immediately. "Where's Kang?" she asked one of the remaining guards. "Handling it, ma'am." She turned back to the window. Somewhere in the hills below, Matthew was making his move, and Kang was letting him. The call came 18 minutes later. Kang's voice, calm and unhurried, and filled the war room speakers. "Matthew took the bait," he said. His people followed the decoys to the 101 interchange. They're attempting a moving intercept. Danielle's hands clenched. "Where are you?" 2 miles behind them, watching. "Watching? Kang, they won't reach the vehicles," he said, "because in approximately 30 seconds, the California Highway Patrol is going to execute a felony traffic stop on all 3 cars." Silence. Then, distant sirens. "How?" Danielle started. "I called the FBI 45 minutes ago," Kang said calmly. "Informed them that Matthew Reynolds was attempting to flee federal jurisdiction using hired contractors and cryptocurrency, provided his location, his vehicle descriptions, even the route he'd likely take." Danielle heard shouting through the phone, squealing tires. "And they were very interested," Kang continued, "especially when I mentioned the $2.3 million he'd just moved through an account in your name." "You knew," Danielle whispered. "You knew he'd try to run." "I made him try to run," Kang corrected. "Men like Matthew only have one move when cornered: escape. I just had to make escape look possible." Through the phone, she heard authoritative voices. "FBI, exit the vehicle. Hands where we can see them." Then Matthew's voice, high, desperate. "This is a mistake. I'm a victim here. That woman, she's the one." Matthew James Reynolds. A female voice cut through clearly. "You're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, illegal weapons trafficking, and conspiracy to obstruct justice." A pause. "You have the right to remain silent." Danielle sank into a chair, her legs suddenly unable to hold her. It was over, actually over. Kang returned 2 hours later. He found Danielle still in the war room, staring at her phone. The news had exploded. Federal arrest, Matthew being led away in handcuffs, his business partners flipping on each other in real time, and buried in the coverage vindication. FBI confirms. Forensic accountant Danielle Brooks cooperated with investigation sources. Brooks instrumental in uncovering multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. Her phone buzzed with messages. Apologies from former colleagues, reporters requesting interviews. Her mother crying with relief. Kang sat down across from her. "The FBI wants to meet with you tomorrow," he said. "Formal statement. They'll need details for the prosecution." Danielle nodded numbly. "They've already cleared you of any wrongdoing," Kang continued. "The account in your name, they have proof Matthew created it without your knowledge or consent. You won't face charges. And financially? The prenuptial agreement is void. Your assets are protected. I've had my lawyers ensure every account Matthew touched is documented and separated from your name." He paused. "You're safe, Danielle. Legally, financially, physically." She looked up at him. "So I can leave?" Something flickered across Kang's face, too fast to read. "Yes," he said quietly. "You can leave." Danielle waited for relief to wash over her. It didn't come. Instead, she felt unmoored, like she'd been holding her breath for so long that normal breathing felt wrong. "Where will you go?" Kang asked. "I don't know," she admitted. "Back to Ohio, maybe." And start over somewhere Matthew's name won't follow me. Kang was quiet for a long moment. You could stay, he said finally. Danielle's heart skipped. What? In Los Angeles. Not here. He gestured to the compound. But nearby. I have properties. Safe locations where you could rebuild without looking over your shoulder. Why would you? Because you deserve more than running, Kang said. You did nothing wrong. You shouldn't have to hide. Danielle studied him, searching for the angle. What do you get out of this? She asked. Kang met her gaze directly. For the first time since she'd met him, he seemed to hesitate. I don't know, he said honestly. The admission hung between them, raw and unexpected. Protection is no longer needed, Kang continued slowly, as if working through the thought himself. You're cleared. Matthew's arrested. The threat is neutralized. He stood, walked to the window. You should go. Resume your life. Forget this ever happened. But, Danielle prompted softly. Kang didn't turn around. But I find myself reluctant to let you. The words were quiet, careful. Danielle's breath caught. Why? She whispered. Kang finally looked back at her, and something in his expression had shifted. The careful control had cracked, just slightly. I don't know that either, he said. And for the first time, Danielle realized the most dangerous thing about Kang Min-jae wasn't his power. It was that she didn't want to leave. Morning light filtered through the canyon, painting the compound in shades of gold and shadow. Danielle stood on the terrace, coffee cooling in her hands, watching Los Angeles wake below. Somewhere down there, Matthew sat in a federal holding cell, his empire dismantled, his reputation destroyed, his freedom gone. She should feel triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. For 2 years, Matthew had controlled every aspect of her life, where she went, who she saw, how she spoke, what she wore. He dressed it up as love, as partnership, as correction, and she'd believed him. Even now, standing in the aftermath of his collapse, she could hear his voice. Independence is great, until it interferes with alignment. She'd spent so long being managed that freedom felt dangerous. You're up early. Danielle turned. Kang stood in the doorway, dressed simply in dark pants and a white shirt. Without the tailored suits, he looked younger, almost approachable, almost. Couldn't sleep, she said. He joined her at the railing, keeping a careful distance between them. The FBI called, he said. They've moved up your meeting. They want your statement this afternoon. Danielle nodded. And after that? After that, you're free. The word sat heavy between them. Kang reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. He held it out to her. What is this? She asked. Deed to a condo in Pasadena, paid in full. Your name only. His voice was matter-of-fact. Security system installed. Clean title. No connection to me or my businesses. Danielle stared at the envelope. Kang, I can't. You can, he said quietly. And you will. Consider it payment for the work you did flagging those accounts. My auditors estimate you saved my network approximately $18 million in potential federal seizures. That's not why I did it. I know. He pressed the envelope into her hand. Which is exactly why you've earned it. Danielle's fingers closed around the paper. There's also a contact, Kang continued. A legitimate accounting firm. They're expecting your resume. No connection to your previous employer. Fresh start. He stepped back. You don't owe me anything, Danielle. You never did. What I did stopping Matthew, protecting you, that was my choice, not a transaction. Danielle felt tears prick her eyes. Why? She asked for what felt like the 100th time. Why do all this for someone you barely know? Kang was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes steady on hers. Because, he said finally, in my world, people are currency, assets, tools to be used and discarded when they're no longer valuable. He paused. You were never that. You saw something wrong and reported it, even though it put you in danger. You did the right thing when no one was watching, when there was no reward. His voice softened. People like you don't belong in cages. Not Matthew's, not mine. The words broke something open inside her. What if I don't want to leave? Danielle whispered. Kang went very still. What? She turned to face him fully. What if I choose to stay? Not because I'm afraid, not because I owe you, but because I want to. Danielle, you said I was free, she continued, her voice gaining strength. That means I get to choose what I do with that freedom, where I go, she hesitated, who I spend time with. Kang studied her carefully, his expression unreadable. You don't know me, he said quietly. Not really. You know what I did for you, but you don't know what I do. The choices I make, the things I've done to build what I have. You're right, Danielle agreed. I don't know you. She stepped closer. But I'd like to. The silence stretched between them, taut and fragile. This isn't gratitude talking? Kang asked. No. Not fear? Not trauma bonding? No, Danielle said firmly. This is me, Danielle Brooks, making a choice. For myself. About my own life. She held up the envelope. I'll take the condo and the job contact. I'll build my own life on my own terms. She met his eyes. But I'd also like to see you again. Not as someone under your protection. You as someone who chooses to know you. Kang's carefully maintained composure cracked, just slightly. That's dangerous, he said softly. So was flagging your accounts, Danielle replied. I did it anyway. A smile ghosted across Kang's face, genuine and unexpected. You're certain? I'm certain. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was tender, careful, nothing like Matthew's possessive touches. Then I'll call you, he said, when you're ready, when you've had time to build your life without anyone standing over you. And if I call you first? Danielle challenged. Kang's smile deepened. Then I'll answer. 3 months later, Danielle Brooks stood in her new office, modest, professional, entirely hers. She'd testified at Matthew's trial and watched him sentenced to 15 years federal prison. Rebuilt her reputation one case at a time. Her phone sat on her desk, Kang's number saved but unused. Not because she didn't want to call, but because she was learning to stand on her own first. To build a life that wasn't defined by anyone's control, not Matthew's manipulation, not even Kang's protection. Outside her window, Los Angeles sprawled endlessly, and for the first time in years, Danielle felt no pressure on her chest, no hand at her back, no voice telling her to align, just space, just choice, just freedom. When she finally picked up the phone, it wouldn't be because she needed rescuing. It would be because she chose him. And that made all the difference. Thanks so much, my dear friends, for enjoying this beautiful story till this end. If you've not subscribed, kindly subscribe now to be notified when we drop our next story. Also, like the video and comment where you are watching from and what time it's at your end. Thank you.